I'm Kevin Crockford. I'm a soprano cornet player. First played at Black Dyke in late 1983. I've had two spells with the band. I was there in 83 and then I left in April 89, came back again March 92 and left in April 99. I started when I was 10 years old at my junior school. And in those days, at junior school, you had one teacher for the whole year. And this guy was a cornet player. This is down in Portsmouth, where I originally come from. And because he was a cornet player, all my mates were playing cornets because he used to let them off maths lessons to go and practice. It was fantastic. So I went to him and I said, Mr. Young, can I learn the cornet, please? And he said, smile at me. So I smiled. He said, no, you've got crooked teeth. You'll never make a cornet player. So obviously I was a bit miffed about this because I wanted to get out of maths lessons. So I went home and told my dad. Now, as it happened, my dad worked in the big post office in Portsmouth. And he worked beside a guy called Wes Garner. Now, Wes Garner is quite well known in bands, or the late Wes Garner. He was conductor of the Solent Concert Band for many, many years. In fact, he founded it. So my dad started telling them about these problems that I was having. They wouldn't let me have a go. So he said, but don't worry, he said, I've got a trumpet here. I'll send that home and let him have a go and send him down to our beginners class. So that's how it started. And then, of course, I took to it like a duck to water, loved it straight away and worked like mad with it. That's how I started. I was at Solent Band and they'd just given me a soprano cornet. Now, when they gave it to me, I was on third cornet at the time. I didn't even know what it was. The band had never had a soprano cornet. So, and apparently Wes gave it to me because I was okay at the high notes. There you go. So, so there we go. So I started playing the soprano cornet, and then for my birthday present, I was bought this LP called Carnival in Venice, and it was the old Black Dyke Mills band. I think it was recorded 68, 69, something like that. And playing soprano was the late, great Tommy Waterman. Now, Tommy was on there, recorded Les Preludes by Liszt, and I was absolutely blown away with this guy, and also blown away with the band as well. It was just absolutely amazing. I wore that record out, literally wore it out. And from then, really, it was always my dream, ambition, maybe one day this young guy with crooked teeth from the South Coast could actually get to be a member of Black Dyke Mills Band. I've got lots of favourite memories. In the 14 years total I was here, oh crikey, there was the big Japan tour in '84, that was wonderful. In fact, all the tours were fantastic. 2 Grand Slams. I think I'm right in saying I'm the only player who played in Black Dyke in 1985 and 1995 with the 2 Grand Slams, winning the area, European, National and British Open in the same year. And I'm the only player that actually was in both of those bands. So I'm quite proud of that. And they were fantastic years. Just nobody could touch us. The band was immense. But I think probably my favourite time was probably when I very first came up here, when I got first met one of my heroes and who became one of my closest friends. And that was Derek Jackson. And this was like late 1983, and I was a young guy, 22 years old, and I came up here. I got asked by Fred Ellis, would you come up and have a blow? We need a soprano player. I was playing at Carlton Main Frickley at the time. And so I came up here and I was dead early. There was snow on the floor, and I walked up the stairs into this very room here, and there was one guy in there of the double B-flat bass, and he was just playing away, glasses on the end of his nose, with a chain round the arms, round his neck, and he just stopped, looked like, and he said, "Are you this soprano player?" I said, "Yeah, that's right." He said, "I hate soprano players." And this was Derek Jackson. And to be honest with you, I was absolutely terrified. And I thought, well, welcome to Black Dyke. So anyway, I went and sat down and started warming up, and then everyone came in. Trevor Walmsley conducted that night in rehearsal. And at the end of the rehearsal there, it had gone pretty well, and I really enjoyed myself. It was just a thrill, you know. I sat in front of me was Philip McCann. Look across there, there was John Clough. Behind him, there was Frank Berry and the trombone section. This is what dreams are made of, and it was for me anyway. And the only other was going home or going over to the Stag across the road. And Derek Jackson came over to me, and he leant forward and he just says, "Well, you can play a bit, I suppose," and walked away. And I thought, well, maybe that's a test I've passed. And it wasn't long after that where the band actually asked me if I would join the band on soprano cornet. Of course, I was just thrilled, a dream come true, and pinched myself for many a year after that. I think the most memorable treasure performance would have been the national finals in the Albert Hall in 1985. And of course it was Cloudcatcher Fells. It was a brand new piece. The Majors was quite sensational on it. He really, really made us all believe that we could play this and play it very, very specially, and it was just mind-blowing. And the band was absolutely stunning that day, and I remember it. I had a fantastic day. Even a young guy called Howard Snell was conducting Desford that day, and they came second. And he actually came to me and he said, "Well done, young man. It was mainly because of you that you pipped us into second place." I mean, this was just, man, am I really pinching again? You know, it was just amazing, amazing moment. I'll never forget it. And of course, also that was the final piece of the final performance of the '85 Grand Slam. So very, very special time. But there's been so many memories, so many good ones. Oh yeah. You don't come to a band like Black Dyke Mills and not have difficulties and challenges. Ironically, nobody really got on that well in the old '80s Black Dyke Mills band. You know, there was a lot of arguments, a lot of fallouts after the rehearsals, but it didn't seem to matter because everyone, when on the stage, we were all for together, you know, and everyone played for each other, and you knew what was going on, and you could feel that. And I've never experienced it since, in all honesty. So that was fantastic. But there was no real camaraderie, which was quite interesting. But I remember Jeffrey Whittam once saying to me across at the Stag there, and Jeff always told it as it was, and he said, "I'll tell you, Kev," he said, "everyone that joins Black Dyke will eventually get sacked." He said, "There's two reasons you can be sacked for. Firstly is for not being good enough, and secondly is for being overpassionate." And those words always stuck with me, and he was absolutely right. So that was a difficult time in 1989 when I had some dreadful teeth problem. And basically what happened was that tooth there, that's a crown, and it broke. And I was at my dentist to have a new crown fitted. They made all the models, and when it came to it, they actually lost the models. So it was like starting from scratch. And a front tooth on a soprano cornet, this was serious, and it caused me weeks, if not months, of serious, serious problems. I wasn't playing well. You know, and I knew this as well. I was going to the dentist every week for about 20 weeks, shaving a bit off this new one until we eventually tried to get somewhere near with it. And, excuse me. And eventually, Major, you know, it's understandable. He'd run out of patience, and he put me on the front row. I think he recognised the service I'd given there, and the kind of attitude I had was very, very strong. But in the end, he had to replace me as a soprano player, and he put me on fourth man. That was never going to last very long. And it was sad in a way because it was all starting to happen, but it all happened too late, really. And that's when I went down. Jim Watson invited me to go down to Desford. And I left here in the April, and it was bizarre. I went straight to Desford, and then we went to London that year, 6 months later, and Desford won it, and Black Dyke was second. Hey, that's what you call kismet, isn't it? Yeah. Great days, though.
Who were the characters in the band?
Oh, crikey. Everyone was a character. Jacko, for me, was the biggest character. Blunt as they come, as was John Clough. I adored both those guys. Philip McCann was a character. Always told it very, very straight, and invariably was always right, although you never agreed to that. never let him know it. You never shut him up. But a great, great ambassador. Just brilliant characters. John Slinger. Oh, I've got so many fantastic stories I could tell about these guys. Wonderful.
Musical directors, who influenced you the most?
Two people, really. I mean, nobody could have walked into this room in the 80s, you know, without working under Major Parks and being completely blown away. He was inspirational. He was the greatest motivator. But, you know, the biggest thing about him, I think the biggest secret of his success was, and I've never experienced it since, he studied every single player in the band. Don't just mean as a player, the characters, what made them tick, what motivated, what devo, etc., how he could get the best out of them. And he knew every one of us. He knew which buttons to press. He certainly knew mine. You know, if it was in a rehearsal for a competition and I'd be struggling on a little solo line, whatever it might be, you know, he knew how to make me play. He would turn to me and say, "Kevin, I'm going to take that off you. I'm going to write that onto the rep part for tomorrow's rehearsal." And I'd be sat there with steam coming out my ears. And next rehearsal, we'd sit down and he'd say, I never got time to do that. You can have one more go at that, Kevin. And of course, I had it nailed, believe it, every single time. He knew exactly which button to press. And he had a little smile on his face as well. I knew what he was doing, but you still... But that's how mesmerising the guy was. And of course, the other one had to be James Watson. Another great motivator, another great man manager, brilliant musician. And he just oozed success. And that's what he got. And we all had a good time with him as well. It was good fun in the gym days. It didn't change my life. It completely took over my life, you know, because I'm well known for being 100% committed, something that players generally tend not to be today, which I find so sad and extremely frustrating. But yeah, I think in all those years there, I missed 4 rehearsals in about 14 years, and no jobs. And it's been the same in all the other bands I've been with since, you know, always there, 100%. And I think everybody should be, you know, if you're in something, you should do it 100%, because it's not just for yourself, it's for all your colleagues. You should be there giving your absolute best. Yeah, the overseas trips, we did quite a few. I'm sure a lot of people have already waxed lyrical about Sierra Leone in 1992. That was that was an education in itself. Australia in '88, that was a good tour. That was for the Australian bicentennial year, 200 years. And I was a young guy then with hair, teeth, waistline. We had it all in those days. And we had a great time because we were more or less based in Sydney. So we were out every night having a wonderful time, working hard and playing hard at the same time. But when you're young, you can do that. I couldn't do it now. So that was a great trip. But a lot of the trips to Switzerland were always very enjoyable too. They were mainly long weekends. But yeah, always got well treated and well received in Switzerland. Some great times, along with the Japan tour as well. Just so many. Black Dyke is, and always will be, and always has been, it's the flagships of the world's brass band. It's the HMS Victory. You know, this is Nelson's flagship. It is vitally important that there is always a Black Dyke. I mean, it's important there's always a Grindthorpe, there's important there's always a Desford, a Fodens, a Fairies. You know, the whole movement needs these iconic bands. It's not just for the present, but it's for the past as well, and vice versa. Black Dyke is so important. Everyone needs to aspire to something. It worked for me. You know, I aspired to being in Black Dyke Mills. I never thought I'd achieve it, let alone do 14 years over 2 stints. But it's the same. Everyone needs a goal to go for, to realise an ambition, and Black Dyke is the epitome. Major Parks once said, Black Dyke bandsmen are like princes. He said, that's how I would liken them. He said, they're like princes from the royal palace in the brass band world. And that's how you really did feel, and I'm sure the guys and girls of today feel exactly the same. The future of brass bands and the future of Black Dyke, I think I've already said there's got to be a strong future for Black Dyke. I think it's in very, very good hands. You know, we're just walking around here today. It's been 18 years since I've been in this room, and I still get that feel of awe when I walk in. So I think the setup that Nicholas has made here is phenomenal. He's got every base covered as far as I can see, so there will always be a future. For the future of brass bands, that's a tough one. You know, you look at the audience numbers now. I might be a bit controversial here, but they're dying. You know, I mean, it's well known that audience for brass bands are always the Blue Rinsers, if I'm allowed to say that. You know, but they're disappearing because they're dying, and there isn't the young coming through like there used to be. You notice that when you do concerts, you do as many as I've done in the past year, especially at Grindthorpe, who are well known for selling out everywhere they go, as a Black Dyke. And then you go and do a concert, you know, and it's like half full is all. And promoters are now booking smaller halls because they can't fill the big ones. That's the reality of the future, I think. Education seems to be strong. Talking to Lee Rigg and some of the other teachers that I know, you know, they study hard, they practice hard at school. As soon as they leave school, that seems to be the end of it for an awful lot of young players. So sad. You know, we need more Black Dykes, we need more Grindthorpes, Fairies, Fodens, Desfords, so that these kids can aspire to this and hopefully keep playing. That's what I think of the future. It worries me. Okay, anybody new starting to play, one, you've got to want to do it. You've got to have some sort of passion for it. That's very, very important. And I think it's important I'm sure most people say you've got to practice hard, you've got to study hard, and of course that's very, very true. But I really think you need to listen hard as well. Kids of today, they need to listen to the CDs of these bands, like this one here, Black Dyke. Listen to it, and just actually listen to the quality, because it's so exciting. It's fantastic. They're amazing, you know. And I think a lot of kids would actually benefit from that. Go to concerts. You don't see these children in concerts anymore. They're not in the audience. If they were, I'm sure they would be much more committed and have bigger ambitions to actually start playing and go further. But they need to be committed. I would just like to add, in November this year, I'm really, really excited, because after 18 years of being away, the band has actually asked me to do a concert with them over in Ireland, and I'm so excited to do that and thrilled that they can still ask me. Isn't that something after all these years? Because I'm still playing regularly, so I'm in shape, and I will be in shape. And I'm delighted, and it's a moment I'm really, really looking forward to. That really will be a nostalgic trip down memory lane for me. So thank you very much for asking me, guys.